Hello, Joe Markowitz with today's Liberty Dispatch, and I am privileged to be able to have a new friend here in Raleigh to do this recording. Her name is Elaine Beck, and she's the founder and creator, CEO of Proverbs Media Group. She comes from Tucson, Arizona. And yeah, in Raleigh, it's a little cooler than Tucson. But anyway, we're so happy to have her here. And we're going to have a good little jam session here today. I'm going to let Elaine introduce herself and talk about her background and get into what led her to this place. And then we're going to have a good discussion today. And so, Elaine, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Joe. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I'm very excited. But everybody that knows me so far knows that I'm very excitable because I'm very passionate about what I'm doing. And I believe that's from, you want to know a little bit about me. I, I've had an amazing journey in my life so far, and God just keeps making it more amazing because I was raised in a very rather large family. I had four sisters, five girls. My dad always said he was way outnumbered, and so it was really great. But unfortunately, my parents both had difficult childhoods, and so they sent us to church. They didn't take us to church. So it was sort of the Sunday morning babysitting. My mother admitted that later in life. And so I didn't get a lot of the at home leading into, what God was about or anything. I was told to be afraid of him though. I mean, my mother used to tell us that if we got little white marks under our fingernails, those were lies or bad things that we had done. Now that's pretty bad, but things like this happened in my life. So I had came from a home where I had some mental abuse, and so I was very insecure. Believe it or not, I was shy. my babysitter later in my life, who I became friends with when we were both old, into raising our own families, told me that she always knew where to find me. I was in the bottom of the closet hiding because I guess I just had this real withdrawn thing. So God has worked a lot on me, believe me. After that, I got married. I had three wonderful children that I love and adore. And in raising them, I grew a lot. And I knew one thing for certain. I was going to take my kids to church. I was going to participate in everything they did. I was going to be at every baseball game, cheerleading thing, whatever they wanted to do, they would do. And I was going to be part of it because I never had that. And so that was how God sort of led me even more into being closer to him because I had to rely on him for so many things. And that marriage was abusive as well. So I went through 17 years of abuse in a marriage. And so the outcome was someone who, turned to the Lord because at that point in my life, because believe me, I was needy. I was scared to death and all alone, and I had three children to raise on my own. And I'll tell you what, God's never let me down. And we got through all of that, and during that time, God just kept showing me more things that ways that He would be there for me. I mean, there was times when we didn't have enough money for food, but we always went to bed with something in our stomach. Mm-hmm. And so, He grew me. I wasn't one of these people, I love this about my life though, I wasn't one of these people that can tell you, this was the moment. I went to church and I went forward because I had this great awakening, or there wasn't a moment in time in my life. God has slowly, it's been like He's been, working on me and molding me and shaping me. And yet I can tell you many moments in my life that were earth shattering. God has saved my life, literally, physically saved my life. He has cured me from an incurable disease that I had for 6.5 years. He has, I was in a car accident a few years ago, and I had a bone sticking that far up, literally, on my arm. Doctors, paramedics, neighbors, friends, family all came to the hospital. I totaled a great big Mercedes Benz. Okay, I moved a large mailbox down the street, and when that happened, they took me to the hospital and they splinted my arm, and everybody was worried about it. They took me for X-rays, and I didn't have any concussion or anything like that, and yet I don't remember 1 second of going for those X-rays, not one. As they rolled me back into the room, the doctor walked over and he said this, just like this: I X-rayed you from above your head to below your feet, and there's not one broken bone in your body. And everybody looked at my hand and my wrist, and it was perfectly aligned and everything was fine. So I have experienced things that I know God has said to me over and over again, that he has a purpose for me. And we all know we have a purpose. We should know that. If we don't, we need to seek it, because and open up to him and give him that opportunity. And the more times that this happens to me, the more I realize that, we're here for such a great purpose, to serve him. And so when 2 years ago, I woke up, I had a sort of a acute event, because I'd gotten bored. Really bored. I'd finished decorating our home. We'd just moved into a new home a few years before, and we'd done all kinds of stuff. And I had just sort of gotten at the end of the shopping and getting it decorated and fixed. And I said to my husband, I said, well, honey, I don't know what to do. I'm bored, And we had talked like 6 months before that. We should both write a book about our lives, each of us individually, right? I said, that just doesn't sound like what I should be doing. And so then my friend came over the next day, and she said, Bob, buy another house. She's driving me crazy. She's bored. Let her decorate another house. And he said, he looked at me and he smiled and he goes, honey, that sounds like a personal problem to me. You better pray about that. So let me tell you, I spent that afternoon and evening praying. My husband said something and it really hit the nail on the head. I was like, I need to pray about this. I'm asking the wrong people. I need to ask God, what is it you want me to do? So I go to bed my normal hour. 2 o'clock in the morning, God woke me up, and I know it was God. Because it was one of those moments in time where I woke up and I just felt his presence. And I just felt like, okay, I need to get out of bed. So I get out, I go in the family room, and I sit down in the chair, and he said no, and I got on my knees. And I'm on my knees and I'm praying, and I'm like, okay, God, I know you have something for me. Fill me with your Holy Spirit. And I just kept saying that over and over again. And I literally could see this wave of light coming down before my eyes. And I just stayed that way. Well, little did I know, but I got up off of my knees later on. Now, mind you, this was 2 o'clock in the morning. And I got up off my knees and I went to walk in to get a cup of coffee. And he put me right back down on my knees in front of the counter. And I started sobbing. And I realized, in looking at the clock, that I'd been on my knees for 3 hours. And I had just allowed the Holy Spirit to fill me up. And that's when I realized all the things that God had shared with me. And that was that he said he wanted me to bring all the Christians together in the nation. And never at any point have I ever said, well, that's impossible or that's too big of a job, because I knew he was in charge. And he told me that night. He also shared with me, he said, I will put the right people at the right place at the right time. And the one thing that he said I was never to do was allow anybody to put any doubts in my mind. And I've realized since then that meant me too, because we can do that. We can throw our own doubts. We can throw our own, hurdles in the way and excuses and reasons and stuff. And so for the last 2 years, I have, just tried to follow his lead, and out of it, starting with Blessings Through Action, which is a nonprofit that we have as well, which is, we're about to open up a really great thing. It's called Be a Blessing. And Be a Blessing, you'll learn about over time, but it's a wonderful thing. But mainly we're still working on Proverbs Media Group, which is the Christian news journal where you can go online, just put in Christian News Journal, and you will get the real news. We do our best. I mean, we strive daily, every day, to check out all of our sources, to make sure everything's right. The last thing I ever want to be called is fake news for 2 seconds. Because we feel that the country deserves to hear the truth. So Proverbs, God gave me that name because that was always one of my favorite books of the Bible. I read it constantly. I mean, because what is that? That is our guidebook. The yeses and nos. It is. Wisdom and knowledge. And so, and that's exactly what God told me to do, was that I needed to stay in wisdom and to grow in knowledge. And he tells us all that. So I thought it was the perfect name for it. Being a media group, we're the newspaper, and then of course we have the big thing that we want everybody to be part of, and that's Faithdom. And it's funny because, do you know how hard it is? Have you ever tried to look up a name of a company to start a company? I know you have.
We tried, yeah.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, there's 50 million names out there that people have bought up and they don't even use them, but they want you to pay to get them. So you have that option, or you come up with something totally unique. Well, I think that one of the best things and what we all want to partake in is being part of the kingdom of God, right?
That's right.
And so as I was going through all of these crazy names, I'm like, it's got to be about our faith. And, and that's when it hit me that why not Faithdom? Because, here we are on earth. We have to have that faith. If we don't have the faith, how do we get through those hard times? How do we get past that abuse in our life? Whether it's at work or at home or in our past. I mean, people relive things too. And so we need God to keep us strong. And it's through our faith that we stay strong, Yeah. And so my objective, and God made it clear to me that the only way that I could reach the country, and this was about God and country. He made that clear to me too. This wasn't just about, spreading his word and keeping it in that neat little book that we have that's so awesome, but getting it out and sharing it and bringing everybody together, having a voice. There needs to be a powerful voice in this country. And there's too many that are evil and hateful and going in the wrong direction, and it's called man's way versus God's way.
Yeah. Can I interrupt
Absolutely.
you there? Absolutely. There's just so much you're unpacking here, and the objective for you, it was clearly not to start a church.
Nope.
No. And for me, I mean, a lot of you know my background. When I started a business of my own decades ago, it took Christian businessmen and women to really start opening my heart. This might be a horrible thing to say, but I would have never listened to a priest. I would have never listened to a pastor. I was just close to that. But it took a different kind of person, a businessman, who started speaking to me in my language. And that's when the Lord started opening my heart, changing me. I gave my heart to the Lord years and years ago. In fact, I was at a business convention. And from there on out, my wife and I have built an enterprise, a family business, a network that has now gone not only North America but around the world. And but still, there has to be a reason, an inspiration behind what you do. You can make a lot of money in this world. You and I were talking before we went live, and you were talking about your husband who was very successful. You two enjoyed, obviously, a lot of success in the past. That's a good thing. But this call that you had, it was a God thing. And so when you started Faithdom, it is based upon your faith in Jesus Christ,
Right.
and to minister to other people in that capacity. Two, to give a voice to people that cared about, and I don't know if this is true or not, about freedom and liberty. The kingdom of God is very, it drives everything we do. We as believers should be compelled on a daily basis to not just sit, forgive me, on our butts and do nothing. We need to go do something. We are commanded to go out into the world. This is the Great Commission.
Right.
What I'd like to hear about this connection here is that we didn't even know each other than a couple of YouTube videos, and my friend Dave saying, hey, you need to get to know Elaine and what she is doing. But we have the same passions.
Amen.
The passion for the kingdom. Two, we love our country. And, it breaks my heart to see the traditions, our history, the values that we hold dear, attacked like we're some kind of a freak, like we're not educated, or we're inferior to people that are not enlightened. This is something that I try to do with Defender gear, and that it's more than just selling apparel. I want to educate people.
Right.
I'm just a dad. I'm just a businessman. I'm a believer that cares about this country. And so I may not do it right. I may not, I certainly, we're doing this in our home, my clubhouse and my home. We're doing something.
Amen.
It isn't scripted. It is led. And I do take a lot of criticism for what I do. That a lot of people say I should stay right in the channel that I'm in, being a businessman and marketing business, and you're successful, stay right there. It's too controversial to get outside of that. Well, I don't care about that. I mean, I'm willing to take the heat and the controversy and the pushback because it's going to take people who are bold and courageous in this world. We all just come off of the election here a month ago. It is still, at the time of this recording, still very active in the news. There's investigations going on. I don't know how it's all going to turn out. And you and I are still going to be doing something even beyond when this thing is all called, and we're believing that justice and righteousness will prevail. We believe that judgment is going to come upon people that are trying to corrupt our Constitution, our country, our liberties and freedoms. I'm believing for that. But having said that, yes, I know God is in control, but we're going to be doing something beyond January of 2021.
Yeah, we hope so.
we are going to be doing something. We're going to be, as long, Lord willing, we're going to be teaching people about truth. And this is one of the reasons why I was looking forward to this meeting here today. I want you to, if you don't mind, shift gears here a little bit. I want you to talk about what you are doing now. The Lord obviously opened up doors for you and has been putting you in front of influencers.
Right.
I've been seeing your videos. I know where you've been the last couple of weeks. I know where you're going in the next couple of weeks and who you're going to see. I want you to talk about our next season, your next season, and how God is using you and opening up doors, and what your passion is related to this, to not just Faithdom, which is a social media platform,
Absolutely.
but also you're right in the middle of things to be able to try to change things, not just in the election, but in our country for the better. So
Right.
talk about that.
Right. Well, first I want to share something with you. Just a really quick note here is when you talked about the freedom part of it. Actually, our slogan is Faithdom equals freedom, because it does. We all know as Christians that faith is where we find our freedom to go forward and keep going and to feel emboldened to do things. And so I'm excited about that. But as far as the next step, we are doing a lot of things right now. It's pretty amazing. People tell me that I've taken on too much. My plate is really full. Aren't you afraid you're going to burn out? I mean, I've heard all these things. But no, I'm not doing it, though. This is the thing that we have to always understand. I'm not doing it and you're not doing it. It is God using us. We're the instruments. All of the things that God has allowed me to do is just that. He's allowed me to do it. He's asked me to do it. I've just been open to it. And so I just love that I don't have to feel like, sure, we all have days where we feel overwhelmed in life. I mean, it can be pretty crazy at times. But the main thing that we're working on right now is, obviously we want Faithdom to grow. We want more and more people to be on it, because the bigger it gets and the more people get off of Facebook and Twitter and all of these sites where they see nothing and hear nothing but hate and anger and filth. Let's face it, there's a lot of bad stuff on there. Do we want our kids to be filled with that? No. Do we want, ourselves to? I don't know about you, but I mean, you can test this, people. I mean, spend a day watching nothing but the news, any news, and see how you feel at the end of the day. And then the next day, watch nothing but, read your Bible and watch a few evangelical pastors on TV, maybe read some devotionals and things, and see how different you feel at the end of that day. Because God tells us we're to think on all those things that are good and kind and wonderful and for a reason, right? And so one of the things that I'm doing is I'm writing a book, and God has helped me to understand that where I need to start is with the young people. And I was very blessed to have been raised when I was, and I was born in 1948. Does that ring a bell to you, that date, that year, 1948? That's when Jerusalem, became a country again, Israel. And so that was the year I was born. And then in 1960, another very prominent date, was the year that an atheist spoke out against prayer in schools, and they took it out of my school. I was a freshman in high school, okay? No, actually, I was in 7th grade that year. And the following year, they took the ability to, they took the Bible out of school. A couple years later, they took the flag and saying the Pledge of Allegiance out of school. I lived through all this. But the beauty of it is I was born at a time and I had all those things. So when you have something, you can miss it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you never
Take
had
it for
it,
granted.
yeah, if you never had it, can you miss it? So how many young people nowadays have been raised in a school with no prayer, no Bible, no flag? Millions of them. And then what did so many of the schools do, and what have they done to our colleges and to our school systems? They have infiltrated them with false teachings. They start teaching history years after our country began because they don't want the young people to know the truth about how this country was founded, that it was on God. And why do they want to take down all the buildings? Because they all have God on them. We have churches and stuff. There are so many things about realities that I know I had, I lost, and now I appreciate them more than ever. And I want to help young people to have that same appreciation.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm writing a book, and our Proverbs Media Group is going to be part of going forward. So starting next fall in 2021, we are putting together a program and some wonderful young people who are going to be going to the Christian colleges. And that's where we're going to start, in the Christian colleges. Of course, as soon as the Lord opens the door to go to the other ones, we'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to go and we're going to teach the truth, because understand that even in a lot of Christian colleges, there are young people there that didn't have all the background they should have. They don't know all the history. I love things, and a lot of the things that we have on all of our websites are like what's it called? Wall builders. Tim and Barton.
David Barton.
And David Barton.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we show videos there. We talk about it and everything. We're trying to help the youth understand that there's a beautiful history of this country. Have we made mistakes? Of course. Let's see. The last time I looked, God said we were all sinners.
Yep.
So, of course, we've made mistakes. Of course, we've had, here they are. They want to tear down the statues and stuff of people because they did something wrong. Well, who didn't?
Yeah.
Only Jesus is the one that can be said never did anything wrong. He was the only person who ever walked the earth that wasn't a sinner. So, of course, we've made mistakes. Have we overstepped our bounds? Have we hurt people? Of course we have. But we always come back and try and do better the next time. Mm-hmm. Or at least we have in the past. And so our goal is to become part of that positive flow of doing the right things. So not only do we already have Faithdom, where now we can share history, God, community, and all of this, and we can talk about it. We can read the news on the Christian News Journal, know what's happening, get on Faithdom, discuss it. How do you feel? How's it affecting you? What is it doing in your life? How can you make it better? What suggestions do you have? Talk to the congressman in that. And this is what we're trying to do now, is get a lot of the congressmen on our site so that they can hear what you as a Christian mm-hmm. want to say about what happens. Mm-hmm. And then going forward, our goal, like I said, I want to get this book finished. I want to get these kids out there. I want to talk to the youth of this country and let them know that if you will take God walking with you through marriage, college, your life, if he walks beside you, sure, there'll always be trials. The Bible says that. First verse God ever gave me is there will always be trials. Mm-hmm. Okay? I love that because I knew then that I couldn't expect a perfect day. There is no such thing.
Nope.
Okay? So now I knew too, though, that what did I need? I needed God to walk with me because he's the one that's going to carry me when I face those trials. Yep. What a great message to teach these young people. What do you think?
Absolutely. I want to pick up on something you refer to. history
Mm-hmm.
that the kids come up through our schools,
Mm-hmm.
and not necessarily just public schools, but Christian schools, and they're not taught the history of our country. You know, the Declaration of Independence was this was a treasonous document. The very fact that these men, who many of them were very successful, they had land, they had businesses, families. They didn't have to do what they were doing, but they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor over something, a cause, a just cause, so powerful, didn't even exist in the world at that time. And in this time, Elaine, in the late 1600s, 1700s, what fueled that fire for individual liberty was was not something that we saw rising in France, which is a very secular revolution, but in America. The fire for that revolution really came from the pulpits. George Whitefield and many others were preaching about freedom, not freedom like politically, spiritual freedom, redemption. That there was a fire and a hunger for truth, for that redemption and reconciliation, which led to the fact that they were living under a tyrannical government.
Right.
And they felt they had a just cause to say no. That, as we see in the early writings, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. That is a spiritual law. That came from Revelation, that mankind was that God was no respecter of persons for mankind. That mankind was special. He was a created by God being that was above the animal kingdom, above all things. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The kids today are not taught about that. That is prophetic. That is, even today, the vision of the Declaration of Independence, it is still yet to be totally fulfilled. In fact, America paid a terrible price in the Civil War, because while we believed that all men were created equal, we were not acting on it. And so it was a terrible, terrible thing, the Civil War. But we got through that, and we won that. And out of that, the Emancipation Proclamation, and so all those heroes of the Revolution, all those heroes of the early and the creators and the founders of our country, they are heroes. Where if there's no heroes, there's no game. If there's no heroes, what is our guide, our compass? These heroes, as you said, none of them are perfect. Mm-mm. They all were growing up in an imperfect world, in a culture that a lot of us just can't relate with. But to be told today, and this is what I want to get to be told today as a Christian, as a believer, as a patriot, a man and a woman who loves this country, loves its history, to be told that all of our heroes were either racist, xenophobes, homophobes, they were this phobe, but that phobe, and they're terrible people, broken people. That's why we should tear down their statues. If that's what you're told when you're growing up, that by the time you get to high school and college, you will listen to everything that your professors are going to tell you. And as you know, most most universities are very left-leaning. But if you're constantly being told that that this is not right, that your thinking is off, that you're not enlightened because you still believe in these old-fashioned principles of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and rule of law, the Constitution. If you're being told that we're all equal in the sight of God, and that's not enlightened thinking. If you're constantly being told that the flag is racist and represents white supremacy, if you're being told that that hard work, sacrifice, education that's just a representation of white supremacy, if you're being told that that the founders were just terrible people, if you're constantly being told that America was never exceptional, never great, if you're being told this all the time, eventually you will believe it. And that is why people get elected that will tell you only what you want to hear, and they won't speak truth. That is why I believe that so many people would just accept a Joe Biden and a Kamala Harris as their representation of president and vice president. And for those of us who just see, we see it for what it is. When a man named Donald Trump came around, he was never a politician. He came into the scene as a businessman. He was sick and tired of the criticism of who America was, and he saw the corruption, he saw all that, and he's not a nice guy, to the average person who's very offendable. He's a street fighter, he's a businessman. He comes in because I don't like what's happening to my country. Well, you and I believe the exact same thing.
Right.
Now, we didn't have the resources that Donald Trump does, and he had the influence. But one of the reasons why he can go and do all those rallies and have tens and 30, 40,000 people show up is because he's the one that kept saying, it is okay for you to believe in America. It is good that you believe in our founding principles. It is good that we should believe in defending our police, our flag, religious liberty, that we should say no to all these corrupt politicians and the swamp. He spoke for us.
Amen.
And he ticked off a lot of people. And when you kick the hornet's nest, this is what's going to happen. And this is exactly what's happening now.
Right.
And they've been trying to take him on out for 4.5 years, even before he was elected, because he came in to change things. And he stood up for the common man, the small business owner, the free enterpriser, the one who loved the flag, and he said, it is okay, I will fight for you. Now you are in those circles, and you're connecting with those people. Maybe you should, you tell me who you're going to be meeting with, who you have been meeting with recently, who you're going to be meeting with, because you're serious about this, about what you're doing. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, first I want to tell you that, and anybody who's watching, that I don't believe that President Donald Trump is going to be losing his office. I have all the faith in the world that, as bad as it looks, that my God is stronger than that. And I have seen too many people who have seen visions and had dreams, and it's prophetically in the Bible. I've heard everything from Jewish rabbis to priests to pastors from all different walks of life say that they don't believe that things are going to go out of the hands of Donald Trump, that he will be president for 4 more years. And I just wanted to share that, because that's where I'm coming from, okay? And
I agree with you. I really do. And I believe that he He was chosen for such a time as this.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't look like what people were hoping he would look like, but that was Jesus Christ himself. The Jews
right.
expected somebody to come in as a military leader, as somebody that was going to be able to stand up to the Romans, but Jesus came in very different, but he spoke about a kingdom. And I don't want to distract you here, but yes, I believe Donald Trump is chosen for such a time as this.
Absolutely. But as far as what I'm doing, God has led me and told me that I need to get politically involved for a reason. And that reason is to meet with the leaders in that and have some idea of where they see, they're the ones that talk to their constituents. They're the ones that have to go out there in front of all these people and know what's happening in the country and stuff. And they're actually, many of them, on the same page as you and I are, And some of these, you're what, in your 50s?
58.
Okay, you're 58, almost 60. So our generations aren't that far apart. But a lot of them are much younger, and they still feel the same way that we do. So it hasn't been all of the youth have been corrupted. Thank God. Thank you, Jesus. But so what I'm doing is I'm trying to reach out to them and work with them, because a lot of them are working with other people who are evangelical pastors, ministers, preachers. There's a lot of us that are out there fighting the battle right now, because God has sent us all, is sending us all, and he's given us all different directions. But that's what makes it beautiful, because he knows that different people are going to listen to different people. It's that balance of what's happening. So I have met with Mike Garcia, who is a congressman from California. And we all know California is one of the most difficult states in the country. It's very leaning Democrat and left completely.
But I'm not so sure that's entirely true. I mean, didn't we already take 4 or 5 seats back from the Democrats in California?
But I'm saying this is the vision they're trying to make us see. That's where it was, and that's the vision. I agree with you. You're right. But what's happening is a lot of this is changing, and which is a great thing. But Mike Garcia, and then Congressman Mooney, who's from West Virginia, and I met with and did an interview with one of the legislatures in Georgia, and we all know that, like you said, while this is being taped, there's so many things going on right now with indecisiveness in the elections, especially in the state of Georgia, where we have 2 Senate races that are going to make or break so many things in this country. Even if Donald Trump stays in, he still needs that Senate to back him up.
That's right.
Right? So this is a huge election. This is where, it's going to be a make or break for our country as far as the next 4 years go, at least, if not forever, depending on who gets a hold of it. And so they've got several other people that want to meet with me, but the legislator that I met with and did the interview with was Mr. Jones. I'm trying to remember, what's his first name?
Vernon
Help
Jones.
me. Vernon, thank you. I just couldn't think of Vernon. I should have thought of Verner's ginger ale. I'm really good at association, guys. But anyways, he was amazing. I found it so fascinating that I was sitting there at a table doing this interview with a man who still says, I'm a Democrat. And yet he was speaking conservative all the way. And I believe that this is one of the things that we're all going to see, and that we're all praying for, and I hope you are praying for this, that we're going to see that God is going to move these mountains and move these people's hearts and take the veil down and let them see the truth. Because I think this is a lot of what's happening when you take everything else in perspective too, especially with COVID and everything happening too, and the way that the churches have gone along with the being closed and all that kind of stuff. And you were talking about, if you talk about the Constitution says that, that we were lied to for years, and it was, you don't mix politics and religion. That somehow that's a statement in the Constitution. It's not there. The Constitution says that they are not allowed to impose anything from the government into our religion. Okay, so that's a totally different viewpoint.
That's right.
And so it's really important that we start talking to, and I was guilty of this too. Again, I'm always admitting my own guilt. And when I was younger and they said, well, call your senator, or call your this, send a letter, now we can text and we can do things. We don't even have to get an envelope and a stamp and stuff. Contact everyone. Tell them how you feel. We have rights, and we all need to be reaching out to these men and telling them that you do want your freedoms and you do want to help out, and we all can help. Like right now, on Faithdom, pinned to the top of our one link is how you can contact an organization that's working in Georgia. You can make calls. I don't care what part of the country. You can call people in Georgia and tell them how to vote, and talk to them about why they should vote for the people that are running that are conservative versus those that are running on the other side. There's all kinds of things we can do, and I think that's the other thing that I feel that God is leading me to share with everybody, is that pick up your sword, the Bible and His Word, and walk with it, run with it. Speak to your neighbors. Quit hiding who you are. You see this cross around my neck? Okay? I wear that every day of my life. And that's where my heart is. When I was a little girl, we kind of came from a very poor family. And so there came a time during my generation where what became popular was these little lockets. And it was a heart. Little girls all wanted a heart locket. And so every year for Christmas and for my birthday and that, I would just want that so bad. And I never got one. And when I was in my early 30s and I was going through that change in my life after that tough upbringing and that abusive first marriage, I was in my mid-30s, and somebody gave me a cross, and I put it around my neck, and I took a hold of it, and I said, this is my heart, because that's where my heart is. I don't walk out of a room or walk away from somebody without saying, God bless you. I don't hear from anybody to say they have a sorrow, an illness, a sadness, that I don't say, can I pray for that person? Can I pray for you? All of us have an opportunity. We have a voice. God said, bring it together. Speak out boldly. Be that person that wears who you are on your shoulder, on your sleeve, in your life, in front of everyone. Because as long as we keep saying that as Christians, people know who we are because we're good people. Well, in the Bible it says, good deeds will not get you to heaven. Well, it won't speak of who you are either. You need to speak it out. You need to wear it in every way that you can.
Let me just say this as we're winding this down. What do we do next? What brought Elaine and I together? I mean, we didn't know each other at all, other than a personal friend introduced me to Elaine and said, hey, I want you to get a chance to meet her. Started Faithdom. She's well connected. Okay. We have the same passion. So what happens? What do we need to do now? I believe that there is the second great awakening occurring. That's what I believe is happening right before us. I believe that that I think so many people are seeing the injustice, the corruption. They're seeing our very way of life as Americans and our freedoms and our liberties. We could speak about the lockdowns. We could speak about local and state political leaders taking away our civil rights, our individual liberties. And a few months ago, when all this was happening, Elaine, I think people were like, wow, yeah, this is not good. They just knew this is not good. But because they were so afraid of what they were hearing on the mainstream media and all the talking heads coming out all through mainstream media of how bad coronavirus is, and could be millions and millions of deaths, and I think people just rationalized it by saying, well, you know what? I guess to protect the good and the health of the population, a little bit of our restraining of our individual rights and our liberties, that's not so bad. Some people, like me, were saying, whoa, wait a minute. My friend Rick Green, David Barton would say, whoa, wait a minute, what's happening here? And there were other voices, but there weren't that many voices because we were all kind of thinking, well, this thing will be over in about a month or two. And we kind of stuck our head back in the sand. We put our head back in the pillow, and we didn't do anything. And then it went on for 6 months. And now it's going on for 9 months. Mm-hmm. And with people talking about even more lockdowns, national lockdowns, even with vaccines, you won't even be able to get on a plane unless you have evidence of having a vaccine. A lot of these things are scary to me. Let me keep on going. I think that it is so unreasonable that somebody a candidate who never came out of his basement, who couldn't pull together 30 and 40 people at all, and that he can get 80 million votes. And now people are starting to think, wait a minute. Now things are starting to not be just temporary. This is something could be even deeper and sinister.
Oh, yeah. I believe that.
I believe that a lot of churches, not all of them, I believe a lot of churches and the pastors who were willing to compromise a little bit at the beginning because they didn't want their congregation getting upset at them and looking at their pastors because they're calling people to still come together to be extreme and they didn't want to lose their church. But now churches are pushing back. Pastors are pushing back, even under the threat of fines, of jail time. And it's about time.
Amen.
It's about time that now the pastors start leading. It's about time that churches start saying, enough is enough. What I believe is happening is the second great awakening. I believe that the Lord is starting to move across the land. I believe that there's going to be revival like we've never seen in our lifetimes. I also believe that there's going to be very scary stuff happening. That people's lives, their routines that we're so used to, we're so lazy in America. We have it so good. Mm-hmm. Our freedoms and our liberties. Try going to Iran. Try going to Venezuela. Try going to Cuba. Try going to China. Try going to other places around the world. You will never want to leave America ever again. But people have been so complacent, and they've been seeing their liberties eroded. They've been told that you can't meet with your family at Thanksgiving. Now sheriffs are starting to say, we're just not going to enforce these executive orders. And I say, good for them. Good for them. I'm believing, Elaine, that there's going to be a massive revival. I believe that the church is rising on up, and it's going to take its rightful place. I believe that the only way that significant change is going to happen is when the church leads. And that's you and me, and that's people watching this video right here. To all those pastors who are afraid of people leaving your church, and you just want to go and cave to the government, shame on you. I call you out.
I have one question for you.
Yeah.
Not to interrupt, but I have a very important question for you.
Yeah.
Which is going to come first, the revolution or the revival?
Revival.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Okay. I hope you're right.
It has
because
to.
I'm really concerned that there's going to be a revolution, and because my reality and what I've seen with the that they want to get rid of the police and they want to do all these different things. For 4.5 years, 5 years, 5.5 now, we have been fighting, especially the president, to keep things in perspective and get things right. And the more we go forward, the more we're pushed back, because these people's hate and their anger is bigger than we are. Now, not bigger than God, don't misunderstand me. But they're so determined that I cannot believe that if they don't win, if the president stays in or comes back or whatever the case may be, that if that happens, that we are not going to see these people go off in even a bigger direction and try things that are beyond our wildest dreams.
Well, let me just say this. I don't disagree with you in that capacity. Mm-hmm. I believe that there is going to be violence. I believe that there is going to be an attempted coup. We're already seeing it politically, but yes, I believe that is going to happen. But when you say revolution, you're talking civil war.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Civil war, yes.
Civil war. I don't believe that Americans, apart from a revival, could ever conceive that they would now take up arms against another American. No, there will be conflict there, and it's going to get really ugly. But the church and patriots don't want to kill other Americans. They don't want to harm other Americans. What I do believe is that in this time, yes, we're going to see some ugliness, but I'm also going to believe that God is going to save our country.
Yes.
That's what I believe.
I believe that too. I'm just saying that I believe that we need to, if we're talking to the people here, which is what we're doing, we need to have them be prepared for this. That this is probably going to happen in some form or another, and in some places bigger and worse than in others. And I just hope that they're prepared for it and they understand that, I just don't see any of these people stepping aside to do the right thing. They've not done it yet, and they become more and more vicious. What have we dealt with in the last 6 months? We've dealt with, everything against the police. All of these cities being burnt down, destroyed, taken out. And that's before it comes down and they find out that they're not going to be running the country and they're not going to take over. I'm not the kind of person, don't misunderstand me. I'm not trying to, blow something out of proportion. I'm not some sort of let's make this more than what it is. I'm not. I just hope that we stay realistic in this and we understand that, all these people that said, for instance, well, we don't believe in guns. Who do you think went out and bought up all the guns when all of this started? It wasn't all of us. We already owned them.
Yeah.
All right? I just feel that, I want people to be prepared and understand that, let's face it, look at the Old Testament. How many times and throughout the Bible where, God said, stand up and fight. And we may have to stand up and fight.
We may have to. But you asked me what would come first.
Right.
I believe that anything short of God behind it and in it and the church behind it would be put down pretty quickly because of whoever is in power.
Right.
We saw what happened to Donald Trump even before he was inaugurated. Mm-hmm. And the weapons and the weight of the federal government, the FBI, the CIA, the Obama administration, what they did to him, what they did to General Flynn.
That's right.
And many, many other people. And it's very powerful. But I believe that the Great Awakening is going to have to be spiritual.
Oh, I believe it. But I asked that question for a reason. Obvious one really is that I believe that we're going to see a lot more pain, suffering, and have a real fight on our hands before we can have the revival. That's the way that I think it's going to happen. And like I said, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer or a negative person. I'm just trying to say that I hope and pray that we all understand that right now we need to be praying for, number one, that Donald Trump does stay as president in this country.
Yep.
Pray that morning, noon, and night. I love it in the Bible where it says pray continually. I find that it's really easy for me to be praying right now while I'm talking to you because I am. And so I know that we can do that. And I'm asking for your prayers, people, for our president, for our country, for the fight ahead, because it's going to happen. One way or the other, there is going to be a fight. I trust our God is strong, but I also know that we have wronged him and we've let him down. We, his people, even have let him down, or we wouldn't be where we are today. So we need to pray for forgiveness, pray for a revival, and pray for each other, and build each other up. Be strong. Call your neighbors, your friends, and stuff, and be supportive, because what God gave us more than anything else, besides His Son, which was the ultimate love, but He gave us love for one another, and so we're going to need to have that. I really believe that.
Yeah. Second Chronicles, if my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and pray.
That's right.
And seek my face and ask forgiveness of their sins, then I will hear from heaven. Then I will hear from heaven.
Yes.
I will forgive their sins and heal their land. And so absolutely, this is where we are at. It is not a time to be in fear. God's not giving us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind.
Yes.
Is that there are things worth fighting for, no question about it. We'd have to fight in the spiritual realm, and we have to be vigilant.
Amen.
We have to be aware of what is happening. And the mainstream media is not going to be our source. We're going to have to find other sources, and I believe
Christian News
that
Journal.
this is exactly what I was going to say. Is that is why Elaine and her whole team must be supported. I'm supporting her because I think that this is going to be the wave of the future for people to seek information. Whoever owns the information wins. Well, we know, and I'll just tell you this. I haven't turned on mainstream media news since November the 2nd. Haven't turned it on. There are other places to get my information and news from. Mm-hmm. And I believe that there's going to be even business models about this. And I hope that you all really prosper and do well with that. We will certainly support you, because there are better platforms like Faithdom and your network to be able to get real, factual information.
Thank you.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this today. I want you all to support Elaine and her team her platforms. I want you to get signed up on Faithdom. We are too, and let's really build that platform. You're not going to be censoring conservatives and not going to be canceling people on out. And I know you got some haters
No,
that are
always.
all over that. Always will be. That's what we're going to have to deal with. But this is a platform that I believe is going to be very, very good for believers and people who love freedom and liberty. So thank you for coming on today
Thank you,
and this
thank
conversation.
you for your support. I do want to share with them too. Understand that I gain nothing. I want them to know this. I gain nothing by them signing up. This has never been about me at all. Never will be. This is about the Lord and our love for Him and our love for one another and supporting each other. I gain nothing, but we all gain when we share God and we stay in that direction and come together. Thank you for having me, Joe. This has been wonderful.
You're welcome. All right. Until next time, Joe Markowitz, Elaine Beck, and it's been good spending time with you.